This is actually our second webinar on this topic that we've done this winter. And the first one we offered just to TDSB administrators, so to principals and vice principals, as a special meeting about how they could support climate change ed. And we had a huge number sign up for that. It was so exciting to see the interest level from administrators about this. That's why we thought we'd bring it for everybody.
Welcome, everyone. Today's webinar on Principles as Catalysts for Climate Change. My name is Lisa Roberge, and I'm the instructional leader for Eco Schools at the TDSB in the Sustainability Office. We'll start in a good place with the land acknowledgement. So we acknowledge that we are hosted on the lands of the Mississaugas, the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Wendat. We also recognize the enduring presence of all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples. Recently, I've read the book Service Berry, and one quote that has really stuck with me is "All flourishing is mutual." And in thinking and preparing for this webinar tonight or today, is one thing that I think that really applies to our work here, is looking at these schools and looking at these school teams and how they're working together and how the principals of these schools are so important and supporting this work and making sure that the teachers on staff are supported with it as well. So today we'll be listening to three speakers, three principals and vice principals: Annie Slater, Rebecca Cartain, and Andrea Kwok. So we'll be listening to them today, and we'll be introducing them further in a little bit. So we'll just start with the why this work is so important, why this webinar is so important. So in the document, UNESCO's document, Greening Curriculum Guidance, Teaching and Learning for Climate Education, these two statistics really struck us, and looking at how 70% of young people say they are not climate ready based on their education, and 47% the curriculum frameworks in 100 countries, they don't reference climate change at all. Also in Learning for Sustainable Futures report, we can see that students are looking for solutions. What are the solutions to some of the major wicked problems of climate change today? Evidence of climate change, looking at scientific evidence behind examining at the trends, looking at the trends and seeing how the solutions are, empowering them, helping them, see how they can be a part of the solution in the future, and educating them in all ways. At the TDSB, our multi-year strategic plan for students is inspiring minds and shaping futures. So this is an mission that, that looking at climate change education falls nicely within the TDSB. We have our climate action plan. So in that climate action plan, one section is our education and engagement part. And I'll just show you two of the goals that we have within that. So number one, increasing the capacity of school teams to take climate action in their communities, but then also looking at holistically, looking also at staff as well, and how we can help them, staff, promote climate action, but also look at how we can support them in their lives with, the professional development and looking at solutions to improve climate change education within their own lives as well.
With that, I'd like to introduce you to one of our first speakers. My name's Hilary Inwood, by the way, and I'm the coordinator for the professional learning collaboration we have with the TDSB. And I'm really thrilled to have worked with all three of these administrators over many years, and just so impressed with the work that they're doing. So we're going to start off today with Annie Slater. Annie is a principal of Anson Park PS currently, and she is this month's Eco Schools Climate Hero. Congratulations, Annie. She's worked for 25 years in the TDSB, beginning her career as an outdoor educator at Hillside Outdoor Education Center. As a teacher, Annie has consistently championed environmental education and advocacy, serving as Eco Schools lead teacher for 15 years. And more recently, she's integrated climate change education into school improvement plans as a school administrator. She's passionate about outdoor experiential learning, that promotes appreciation of our natural environments by supporting initiatives like school-wide maple tree tapping and pollinator garden planting. We're really happy to have you here, Annie.
Thank you for having me. And thank you so much. I was really surprised to be named a hero because I just see it as it's just what we should all be doing. It's not, I don't feel like it's anything. Um, I think we should all be talking about climate education and it should be embedded in sort of our daily everything that we do with students from K to 12. So thank you very much for that. I believe that one thing that we really need to, we say the land acknowledgement every single morning in our schools, and we need to really talk about how that's embedded within Indigenous learning is embedded into climate change education, and how we can use that to talk about it with our students and to talk about how land-based learning and it promotes outdoor learning and outdoor learning promotes appreciation of our natural world, and if we appreciate and love it then we're going to protect it. So I think that that's really important that we embed all that, and it's an amazing thing as an administrator to really promote and put towards our school improvement plans, promote the resources and activities, and bringing in guest speakers that promote Indigenous learning and how it relates to climate change education. So some of the things that we were doing, so I was at Wilburn Junior for the last 6 years, and this is my first year at Anson Park. And so I'm going to speak a lot to the things that we've done in the past few years at Wilburn. And again, none of this could have been done without amazing teachers, educators at Wilburn and now currently at Anson Park that are passionate themselves. And it's all about supporting one another, building capacity, and supporting the passions and growing that capacity with all your other with all the other staff. So as a teacher, I was very passionate about this, but sometimes it'd be myself and maybe one or two other teachers and one of the other administrators today, Rebecca, her and I worked together, and then sometimes it was just the two of us plugging away at the school, and it was and so I don't want to forget that, and I want to be the administrator that promotes and supports school-wide initiative and supports those teachers that are the leaders. And then embedding it in our school improvement plan makes it that becomes part of the school initiative. So inclusive practices, making sure that all students feel included and that they are part of the world that we all live in, and that we are all part of the stewardship that happens with our school grounds. So in the pictures there, you'll see walk to school Wednesdays, and the kids would all meet in the middle of the field and they'd march around in the morning. An amazing quilt that one of our eco-lead teachers, Tracy Donaldson, and had done with students, and using recycled fabric, and just amazing Earth Week activities and all kinds of events that happened year round. So there were special days, but it was integrated within our entire school year round. And so, of course, embedding the climate change education into the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and of course the global competencies that should be part of our school improvement plans, and all about social justice and understanding that how do we plan actions that go beyond just our school or our immediate community, but the world. So it's all about, and so we were using certain things like the unlearned posters, taking events and certain things that were happening around the world. How are they related? How is hunger related to climate change education? How is clean water related? So and of course it's all grade appropriate. So it's all about how do we take those and then bring them into and embed them and integrate them into the curriculum. And it's definitely been improving, but I think we can take some extra steps in embedding the sort of our eco schools and climate change education into what we're already teaching our students, and of course embedding the Indigenous learning. So revitalizing our school grounds was huge. It lets the kids be part of the action. It lets them really take ownership over that action. So sustainable practices. So we had we filled out for a lot of grants, for whether they were the evergreen, external grants, or internal grants like the CCEL, the Connected Communities Experiential Learning Grants, and where all grades were involved in the planting, the cultivating, pollinator gardens, all kinds of things like that. So it's all about innovation and innovative practices. And we used a lot of those grants to to grow indoors, grow outdoors, and be able to understand the connection, that these practices had. So a lot of green practices, a lot of schoolyard greening was involved. Also partnerships with other schools. So we had a partnership with the high school next door at Woburn CI, and also the Catholic school across the street, St. Thomas More, and some community members. And we assisted with a community garden. So there was a lot of yield there, a lot of community connections. And kids were, from growing those from seeds, those plants, to seeing in the fall the harvest that they got afterwards. It was an amazing experience for a lot of them. And also, like, there were times when they would get together after school or even on the weekends to harvest. So, and then families were invited to go and to help themselves because there was so much there. And there's just was such a great community feeling, and building those partnerships also built the capacity as well. And of course, that whole Thrive piece from our school improvement, the multi-year strategic plan. So it's all about taking the kids outside. You will protect what you care about. And so if you care about nature, and if our students care about nature, they're going to protect nature. So it's about learning outdoors. Like, and I was always say to my staff, it's a beautiful day. Let's take our learning outside today. And you know what? And we would always say, there's never a bad day. It's never bad weather. It's just, let's just dress for the weather, and always including, so doing as much as we can outdoors, and teaching kids about resilience and adapting to our school climate. So, in school, but also appreciating it. It was a huge thing to bring kids outdoors, constantly bringing them outdoors for all kinds of activities and that interconnectedness. So it's promoting all that. And so that goes into our multi-year strategic plan and our SIP plans for well-being and thriving. So that those were very important. And we definitely did all those take me outside days and all those kind of events that we could do to be outdoors. And then, of course, bringing our indoor gardening. So a lot of our grants were able to purchase some of those grow towers, and we had indoor composters, and we had the vermicomposters inside that were helping us. And again, it was all about building that resilience, building that the kids understanding, the students understanding the interconnectedness. And of course, this was all embedded into, if you think about it, through our science curriculum, social studies, and you can even put language in there, a lot of measuring and math and all kinds of things. So it was all integrated within the school. And so students from different grades were involved. We had ISP classes that were involved as well. So everybody was integrated, everybody was part of it, and everybody got to take some home. So our amazing lead teachers that were part of this program would make sure that different students would be able to take some of the harvest home. So you see some kids that it's all packaged, but those are reusable packages where they harvested maybe some of the greens from our grow towers and we're taking it home to have a salad that night, because we would collect from our snack program any of those, like strawberry containers and all that. So then we would reuse them, wash them, and then we would harvest from our grow towers. So it was a lot of that, again, seeing the impact from beginning from seeds to the point where they're taking something home and actually enjoying it and seeing the fruits of their labor, like literally. One of the big projects that we started at Woburn, and we had the benefit of having a former outdoor education teacher there. Hold on, of course somebody's ringing the doorbell when I'm. We did tapping, maple tree tapping, and we're doing it. We just finished it here at Anson Park as well. It's good to have an outdoor educator that's available to guide you. So at Woburn, we had somebody on staff. Here at Anson Park, we did not have anybody on staff, but we were able to book through our outdoor education centers and book an educator to come and help us and guide us. And pretty much we went through this entire the tapping and then the producing and making the maple syrup, which was incredible for our kids to be part of. Understanding waste management was a big thing, and understanding how we can condense our waste, reuse, reduce, making sure we put things in the right bins, and understanding how we could how it impacts. So, and communicating that during assemblies. Like every assembly we had monthly, there was an eco schools part to it, and so understanding how different actions and different decisions and impacted our student community and our school community and our community as a whole. So as you can see, there was a lot of measuring, there was a lot of graphing, and look at the math that's involved there, right? So, and again, that interconnect is how are we connected to and what are the impacts of maybe choices that we're making and how can we fix things. So I think I'm done. Yes. So thank you very much. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. I would be happy to share with anybody that reaches out.
Annie, thanks so much. It's really wonderful to hear what you've been able to accomplish at your previous school, and I'm really excited to see what you're going to accomplish at your current school too, once you've had a chance to settle in to it. I'd like to introduce you next to Rebecca Kaheen. And with over 2 decades of experience in education, Rebecca's been a passionate advocate for environmental stewardship in schools. And Rebecca, I think I've been privileged to watch about a decade of that. And you are a force to be reckoned with. There is no doubt in my mind. Throughout her career, she's been deeply involved in the Eco Schools program, leading impactful sustainability initiatives and collaborating with teams at 2 schools to achieve Platinum Eco School status. She's now serving as a vice principal at Eastview Public School, and she continues to champion environmental sustainability as part of her role there. She's played a really key role in ensuring the school's nutrition program is litterless and has successfully implemented a composting program to further reduce waste. She plays a vital role in ensuring climate change education as a part of her school improvement plan. And most notably, and maybe most recently, Rebecca has recently secured 2 grants to build a healing forest at Eastview, a project that will not only support environmental education, but also contribute to truth and reconciliation and leave a lasting impact on the school and the broader community. We're really thrilled to have you here today, Rebecca.
Thank you, Hillary. I do want to say that you're one of my climate heroes. I've learned a lot from you over the years of taking environmental education AQs, and I'm proud to say I'm a specialist in environmental education. Here at Eastview, I've been part of a team where I feel like this is home. So there are a lot of programs that were already in place before my arrival, and I'll speak to some of those. And I'm pleased to work with a principal who allows me to lead with my passion. So there were a lot of environmental initiatives happening here at Eastview. When I walked in the building for the first time, I could see that this was my happy place. Starting with a pollinator garden at the front of the school. We have a lot of environmental leaders in the building, but no one took the step to actually put in the application to become an eco school in the most recent years. So that's where I took on the leadership of documenting everything that was happening in the building. And I'm proud to say that we achieved gold last year. I feel that the Eco Schools program creates a sense of belonging for everyone and helps us to contribute to the goal of environmental education and the success of becoming a gold eco school. One highlight from last year is the new raised garden beds. During COVID, my husband and I decided to buy a farm, and I've been learning a lot about growing our own food. And so I'm quite happy that we have this initiative that's happening at school as well, because I think it's important for students to learn about the process of growing your own food. And I think it helps kids to see that it takes time and effort, and I hope that it helps to reduce food waste. So at Eastview, outdoor education is part of our Rotary schedule for our grade 5 to 8 students. Once every 5-day cycle, students spend an afternoon with our outdoor educator, and they learn a lot through experiential learning projects, such as the new food garden that students and staff helped build last spring. So I've seen already in the building that they've been planting seeds and getting ready for the garden for this spring, and I'm quite pleased and excited to see the growth and development of that in the coming months. As administrators, I encourage you to consider opportunities for land-based learning with staff and when it comes to scheduling, because I think that the outdoor learning will happen when you have passionate teachers who are thrilled to be able to take kids outside and get hands in the soil and active. You'll see here some of the raised garden bed images in the early stages. And I do feel that this kind of experiential learning helps students to achieve, and all students can reach the highest level of achievement, success, and personal development by being part of these type of projects. Our outdoor educator, Mr. Schramm, is carrying the 2 buckets there in the photo, and he works with our students on a Rotary basis, and he's quite a climate change advocate. As administrators, we can help create opportunities for this. All students thrive and can graduate with confidence, skills, and knowledge using this approach to learning. 2 years ago, before my arrival, the highlight for our school was the pollinator garden. As you walk from the parking lot to the front of the school in the spring, the pollinator garden is so inspirational. The staff and students continue to work on this garden, and it creates such a welcoming environment. It's all about revitalizing our school space and creating an inclusive, safe, and modern environment for everyone to learn. This year, I've been very excited about working on a project. Applied for a couple grants, and that's some of the things that I can do as a leader is to put in the grant applications to create a space for more hands-on learning. So we are planning to plant about 600 trees on our school property. You can see in the image, we have a great schoolyard in terms of space. And so we are going to be planting a healing forest. And this is part of our school improvement plan, and it's a way to commit to truth and reconciliation through creating a space that will allow students to learn outdoors. We know that being outdoors helps with well-being, and I'm quite pleased to be working with Jen Vetter from EcoSchools and other EcoSchools staff, the Urban Indigenous Education Center, and our staff here at school that are Indigenous teacher, our outdoor educator. And we're very, very excited about this project that's going to be coming up in the next few months. The land is going to be prepped in May, June, July, and we plan to be planting in September 600 trees and creating a great outdoor learning space for everyone for the school. As a leader at school, I encourage community events such as our Earth Day cleanup. And as the person who holds the portfolio for our school's nutrition program, I try to make sure that we reduce waste as much as possible. And I save all our bread bags, for example, to use as gloves for the schoolyard cleanup. We also have a program where we have Cobb's Bakery make a donation to our community. And so I reuse the bread bags to bag some of that bread that we share with community members. I'm very passionate about encouraging outdoor trips, and our outdoor education teacher does take students to the local creek for outdoor learning, and we get involved in as many outdoor excursions as possible. So things like Hillside and Monocliffs are also amazing experiences for students to participate in. When I arrived, composting hadn't been happening for a few years, so that was part of my plan to help reduce some of the waste in the school and implementing the compost program into our nutrition program. So our snack bins go out with the classroom compost bins and come back every day with that program. And I'm quite pleased to connect with Maplewood and have co-op students who come in and support the nutrition program. So they do things like help wash the apples, collect the compost bins, ensure that the students are sorting waste properly. So when they do make a mistake here and there, they pick out the litter from our compost bin before dumping it into the large bin. So they play an important role here at Eastview in terms of supporting our EcoSchools initiatives and our nutrition program. As administrators, we can include important environmental events in our communication with families. So you'll see this as a page from one of our recent newsletters, talking about how we participated in Earth Hour at school and encouraged families to join in for Earth Hour at home. And then we have a couple classrooms that are in the photos here that had done a wonderful display about their waste audit in their classroom, and then sharing that information with our school community. As part of our math plan this year, we had a PD session where we talked about sorting waste and how mathematical it is. And so all teachers got to learn from each other about how we can incorporate this kind of environmental lesson into our math programs. This is also from our school newsletter where we talked about World Water Day. And this is the first year that we had a World Water Day assembly at school where students from our Eco Club presented. This art is from a bulletin board in the hallway, and we do talk about a lot of environmental leaders and encourage our students to become activists themselves. In our school newsletter too, we tried to share environmental things such as this story called We Are Water Protectors. And so as a family, when you're reading our newsletter, you can click on the link and listen to the story. And we do have our eco pledge hanging on that bulletin board in the hallway as well. As I said earlier, as administrators, we can support projects by applying for grants. So during the March break, I learned that we received 15,000 from the Living Cities grant. And just yesterday, I got an email that we also got another 10,000 from TD Friends of the Environment. And with money, you can build your forest. So we're very, very excited. So overall, as an administrator, I think that environmental education, climate change education aligns so well with our school improvement plan. It creates a sense of belonging. It allows students to achieve, thrive, and gives us an opportunity to revitalize our school space. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. And we're thrilled to hear about the grant you just received. That's really 2 grants you've just received. And that's really wonderful news. And what a legacy that will be for your school and school community to have this healing forest right on the school property. So what a great idea to share with other schools. Thank you. So we have one more administrator today to hear from, and I'm really pleased to introduce you to Andrea Kwok. Andrea is the vice principal of Withrow Avenue Junior Public School and Quest Alternative. And I'm also very proud that she is a grad from the program that I teach in at U of T, which is our Masters of Teaching program. She's working on building her knowledge of climate change education through participation in this very webinar series that you're attending today with the TDSB and OISE. And she is one of the amazing educators who, along with Annie and Rebecca, I have to say, who came to our first iteration of Climate Camp last summer. So we're really happy to have you here, Andrea. Thank you for coming.
Oh, thank you, Hillary. Well, the best way to learn something is to participate in it yourself. So I'm very happy to be here to talk about some of the amazing things that I inherited in my school when I came here. This is my first full year at this school. I was at a different school where we had some interesting things happening, like a pollinator garden. But there's so many things here that I'll talk to you about a few of them. And it's important to note that the things at our school are a whole school approach. It's not just the teachers and the students. The parents are very engaged in it. And actually, I'll talk more about how the staff, other than the teaching staff, are also involved. So this was delivered just before the massive snowstorm that happened here. We have the compost bin. So that's like a garbage bin just for composts. And it was actually our caretakers that, noted with our lunch program, when they were emptying out the garbage cans at the end of the day, they're like, this is a lot of waste that's going into a dumpster that could be redirected, and put into like an organics compost. And they said, and even if we have that, we could redirect some of our paper towel waste as well. So that was, it was interesting that, like the people who are handling the garbage every day were the ones that noted it and, are very supportive of and sort of initiated this whole process and talking to people. And they're like, cut it off at the source, take the garbage and put it in the proper place where it can be reused and repurposed properly. So that's, and I went and I talked to the caretakers before I did this presentation, and they were like very happy to talk about how, this is a great change within our school. And it's sort of backs onto the where the pollinator garden is, which is kind of nice that that's where the location of the bin is. We have a kindergarten prep teacher that does, we call it the kindergarten exploration program, and it's sort of outdoor education through an Indigenous lens. And she's very, very creative. One of the things she did was she had the students collecting the garbage, and she's like, is it okay if I display some of it on a bulletin board? And I said, well, like that's the garbage that we're generating that we're not properly disposing of. And maybe encouraging kids to, pack the litterless lunches. So she made this bulletin board, and then she did a whole like story to the theme of brown bear about, like how the garbage impacts the animals in our environment. And the kids are very curious. So this is a bulletin board that's located right outside the library in a very shared space. So kids walk by it and they're very curious about the story. So this has been very well received. And it's a nice way to embed our youngest learners as an important part of the school, and their observations and their first experiences in school are connected to the land and the schoolyard, and they have many great memories going forward. The kids at the school like when I first arrived were very passionate about explaining what Lottle was with me. And I'm like, what's Lottle? And they're like, oh, it's learning on the land. I'm like, oh, okay. They're very passionate about it. This is another sort of bulletin board that the teacher created. And she wanted to highlight some of the important Indigenous learning that we're doing. So, their whole idea is, what kind of footprint you want to leave. And she has examples of like all of the different animals within we're very close to a ravine system, so there's lots of different little evidences of animals that come through. And then she connected that to the waste reduction as well. So that was, and there's the medicine wheel as well. So again, it's all very, it goes. This is linking very well and summarizing what Annie said and what Rebecca said about, when kids are outside and they're discovering and they're appreciating the land. And it's also important to connect that to the kindergarten frames of learning, like belonging and contributing, like the picking up the garbage and contributing and caring for our environment is an important value that they learn right when they start here. And so this is the next slides are about the different gardens that we have. So just the whole like philosophy around we do not inherit the earth from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children. So we need to continue to care for it and leave it in the condition it is now, if not better. So this is sort of a highlight summary slide of what we have, and there's photos explaining it in the next slides. We have a really wonderful outdoor classroom, and it's a space that the teachers are able to use. It's not just used by our outdoor education teacher, but all the teachers use it mostly when they're doing like sort of science experiments outside. And it's also a place that the students are allowed to explore throughout the unstructured times, like recesses and lunch things. So it's interesting. I noticed like some of the kids brought out their own chalk and they were like using it to make observations and write notes. And then we have a pollinator garden, an edible garden, an indigenous garden. It's sort of like a reconciliation garden that's really lovely. And then we have a composting station, which is something that we had before the bin came, where it's where all the clippings and when they're cutting down like the garden at the end of the season, that's where everything goes to like a compost station. And so that by the next year it creates some soil that can be put back into the other gardens. This is the kids they're very passionate about explaining how important all of these spaces are to them, and it is very well used. One of my first days here at this school in the edible garden, the kindergarten students were picking kale and telling me like they knew what all the plants were, they could identify them, and they were picking the kale, and then they would ask me if I wanted to try some, which I was like, oh, that is kind of a cool concept that you can just like taste what you grow at school. That it adds to that sense of belonging. Here's some photos of that sort of showing the spaces as well. And again, the raised garden beds thing is so important. And one of the other things that some of the plants, they can winter them. And so some of the things we dig up and they're actually in our library. It's almost like a mini greenhouse between two doors. And one of the things that the kindergarten teachers have shared with me is that, particularly, and I took these pictures during the winter time when we're feeling like we need to connect with nature and see some green things. It's a great like sort of like little walking excursion for kids that need to reconnect with the earth, that we can revisit the plants while they're wintering in the library, which is also another great experience. Oh, and that's just our outdoor classroom.
Thank you so much, Andrea. It sounds like we need to come in the greener months to come see the gardens. We've had so much snow this winter. It's easy for the details and the plants to get lost under all that barrage of snow. But it's sort of interesting to see it in another time of year for sure. So we've got some time we'd purposely left some time for discussion, and we're really interested in learning from other teachers about what your principals or vice principals have been doing to help implement climate change education or environmental and sustainability education in your schools. These three principles have demonstrated that when principals and VPs are involved in the process, that things can flourish. There's no doubt that administrator support is really incredibly important. So we're interested in what else might be happening, what kind of supports, but we're also interested in learning from everybody about what roles that system leaders should be playing in supporting climate change education. So can I turn that back to our three speakers just to begin? What roles are you, and I'm thinking in broad generalities, you're talking about some of the specific projects you supported, but what are the roles that principals and vice principals should be playing? Annie, do you want to start with that one?
Yeah, sure. I think number one needs to be that you are empowering those staff leaders, whether they're teachers, EAs, whoever it might be, and you're showing them your support. And because when I came to my new school, the eco lead teacher was similar to burnt out. Like she was doing so much, and she had said, you know what, I'll do what I can in my classroom, but I'm tired of constantly putting in my own time to do more things. And I said, you know what, I will, you let me know if you need coverage. You let me know if you want to go to the kickoff event, conference, if you want anything that I can do to support you. And so showing that support is what reignited her passion, and to be able to say, you know what, yeah, we're going to do it. We're going to apply for eco schools. And so although she was very passionate, she was just tired of constantly being the only one that was. And then slowly, because we were bringing initiatives and we were embedding them into slowly the movement sort of spread to the other classes. So part of it is just showing your support and being that ally. And of course, the school improvement plan. If you put it in the school improvement plan, if it becomes part of the school wide goals, then you are pretty much saying to everybody in the school and the community, because we bring it into our school council meetings, we bring it into our assemblies, this is important. This is something that we really want not just our kids to learn, but also the adults in the building. Because the one thing, and it still maintains, is that when it comes to things like sorting of our waste, like usually it's a staff room that's the worst place, right? Because people will just, but it's understanding that it is a priority. And when a kid points out to an adult, you know what, that comes from the recycling, Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so. And they realize, you know what, our kids are listening and they're watching us too. So I think by putting it into the school improvement plan and really supporting it openly, you are just showing everybody that it is important. It is something that we support, and it's very important. It's a priority.
Thanks, Annie. Rebecca, do you want to speak to this one?
Sure. To add to what Annie was saying, I think that it also is important in terms of timetabling. So a big part of Eastview's timetable, I take no credit for, it was here before I came, involved scheduling an outdoor educator so that students have that land-based learning opportunity, and encouraging staff to go to PD, like Annie said, making it part of, like, we do a week at a glance. So like any kind of eco school campaign is, I write the week at a glance for staff, is on our week at a glance. So they know this week, for example, it was Goose Paper Day. Creating school-wide events that involve the whole community, and such as the schoolyard cleanup on Earth Day. So ensuring that it's a focus and that other members of the staff and community know that this is a focus for our school. I think that, sharing our passion helps to spread the passion and getting everyone involved.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think about, Andrea, what you told us about the caretakers in your school taking responsibility. I think when a principal sets the sort of the tone and sets that this is going to be an important agenda for the school, then there's no big surprise that other people start stepping up, which is kind of exciting, right?
I think focusing too on the staff who are passionate and willing to get involved and kind of trying to spread. The beginning of the year, I gave out some marigold seeds to each staff member on Teacher Appreciation Day. And I said, I encourage you to be the marigold for others. And I think that that analogy like has stuck with me in terms of like spreading our enthusiasm, right? In terms of climate change education.
I'm going to turn to Alicia. Alicia, as the instructional leader for TDSB Eco Schools, what kind of roles would you like to see principals and VPs playing in the school board?
I think just to help support teachers it's really important. A lot of times teachers are busy within the buildings, and so they don't know what's going on outside of the school centrally. And I think it's a great opportunity for that information to be, kind of maybe tapped on the shoulder and told, this is the work that you can do, or this is a PD that you can engage in. But also connecting teachers, giving them enough time to have conversations with each other within the school. And I think what Rebecca said was really poignant. Like, the teachers that are already doing stuff, there's already people in the building who have the expertise that are already like building upon these things and climate change education and just kind of helping them with what they're already doing, I think is really important. And then that might grow into something like a connection and a team of teachers working on a project together towards a common goal. But I think just that alone, the time, that the space to grow these projects, those things I think are enough to do that. And also, I think also, starting in a new school, like Annie said, there's, and Rebecca, there's already, and Andrea, there's already things happening in the school, just carrying on that, not creating a whole new project. I think that's also something too, because there's some teachers that have been there for a long time and maybe there's something really good going on and and just kind of building that and growing those projects I think is really important as well.
I'm gonna tap myself in to say something if that's okay. Another person that's a good voice in our school is the office administrator who's been here for over 20 years. And she'll point out initiatives that are gold initiatives that have been in place for a long time. So one of them being late slips. We have reusable late slips so that they've been using them for many, many years. And it's a student leadership role in order for them to go and collect those once a week. So teachers know that they have to keep them in a basket on their desk. And then two grade 5 students go around and collect them every Tuesday, which is a wonderful way for them to feel like they're contributing to the school in a positive way. It's their leadership role. And it's just a really easy way to keep something going. Or the boomerang envelopes for report cards going home. That's another one. So teachers have learned to be very conscious about when they're printing things. And so like, again, that we started a student newspaper and it's a new teacher to the school said, what should we do about, should we print physical copies of them or how can we share those? So, we talked about sharing digital versions of it, but maybe printing a couple of paper copies per class, but certainly not making a school set of the newspapers, right? So it's just ways to be creative, and people are just being more mindful and thoughtful about their consumption of things.
And I think on this notion of principals helping schools think creatively and the members of their schools thinking creatively, we had a question in the chat about the staff positions. Rebecca mentioned that there's a teacher dedicated to outdoor learning at their school. Rebecca, can you just address that? That's not true of every school in the TDSB. So how does that happen? How did you make that happen?
It was in place before I arrived, so it really is my principal who led that. The staff worked together to talk about how they could create more engagement in the afternoon for our students. After COVID, it was hard for kids to come back to school and it is a community where there is a lot of trauma. And so we want to create as many engaging activities to get kids involved in learning again as possible. And so, I mean, it's before my time, but the staff worked together to talk about how they could do that. And so we have an amazing building with, and not many schools do, with like a wood shop. We have an arts classroom, we have a robotics room. And so the students are getting a lot of hands-on learning opportunities. Mr. Schramm's been on staff a long time, and he's very passionate about climate change education. And so he obviously, wrote that down as one of the things he would like to teach. And I think that he continues to stay at Eastview because he loves what he does, and he gets to take kids out on trips every afternoon to the local creek and do hands-on things. So I can't take credit for that, but I do think it is an important part as our role in administrators to try to encourage that. And I'm sure that you can find a climate hero in any school building who would love to do that.
Thank you very much. And I think you're right. I think it's about principals and administrators in the school and the teachers together, all working and thinking in a slightly different way about how to best meet the learning needs of students, for sure, but also how to bring in some of these other foci that you might like to incorporate, like climate change education in your school. Annie, did you want to speak to that?
I just wanted to say when I was at Wilburn, again, we had a teacher on staff who was at the time teaching primary, but she was previously an outdoor educator, also at Hillside, but not at the same time that I was there. And so it was in the discussions of the staffing committee that the year, about 3 years ago, that we started talking about this possibility. And because every school gets an allocation for prep, and it really is it is a collaborative, but also under principal's discretion, how they want to use that prep coverage. And so we decided that, one of those preps was going to shift away from phys ed, and that it was going to become outdoor education. But for reportable reasons, it would include health and some physical education. Maybe if the classroom teacher wanted science to be taught. So that it was a lot of collaboration with the classroom teacher. So if the classroom teacher was in grade 4 teaching about, habitats and communities, then the prep provider who was doing outdoor ed was then focusing that period, when they're going outside, they were looking for habitats and adaptations for animals. And so it would change. So it was a very collaborative model, but the kids were getting out, at least once a week, if not more often than that, sometimes 2 or 3 times a week, depending on how often they had this teacher in their schedule.
Thank you. You could help those who might be in this webinar today who are teachers who would really like their principals and VPs to be more supportive of their work in environmental learning and climate change education. What can you suggest in terms of encouraging administrators to play a more active role? Any suggestions on that front?
Share the link to this webinar.
Yeah. Hey, there are principals doing this work. That's a very good suggestion, Rebecca.
You know what? If you can go to them and show them how it can link to the multi-year strategic plan, if you're in TDSB or whatever board you're in, if you're from a different school board, and you show them the links and how, the sense of belonging, thriving, even achieving, all those things, revitalizing, right? All those things can be embedded with climate change education. So if you can show your principal or how they are an Indigenous learning, so many connections. So if you can show them that, and you can show them how it connects with the school improvement plan, you're going to get more chances of buy-in. So a lot of it is, you want to work with them to really see how you can meet those school goals, and to be able to, and how it really, and show them the benefits of, for kids, for their wellness and, well-being, and how it integrates with, there's all kinds of documents, that all these frameworks and all kinds of things that are being posted in the chat that support all that, right? It's not just, our opinions. This is like proven. So you can use all that to really show, and, and start off sometimes with a smaller group of students, but we don't want it to just be the eco club does everything. You want it to be school wide. So, try to get a couple of other staff with you, and embed things into, and things like, having a Twitter account or just really celebrating your successes, but really communicating to your administrator how it can support the school improvement plan.
Well, I really love that through my experience of working with the TDSB, which is a couple of decades now, I think, too. I've seen a real shift, and I love that there are teachers like the three of you who started as educators, who started as eco schools leaders, who are now have worked their way up to administrative positions and are now leading the work. So we've seen a shift, no doubt. And I think of David Hocker Budlowski's work, who's in the room as well, who's started as a teacher, became a principal, and is now a system leader as a central coordinating principal, also advocating for this work at the board level. So, so important, right? To have people at every single level of the school board who are champions for the work. And we so appreciate the champion that the three of you are doing. Are there any other further questions that anybody wanted to make? I don't know if Jen Vetter or Chris Metropolis from the Eco Schools team want to weigh in on any of these questions. Please feel free to if you'd like to.
I'd like to just say that for Jen and Chris, just starting in this role in September, I think a big thing that I learned from them is start small. Like, it doesn't have to be this huge project. That start small, do it well, and then from there it'll grow into something else. And that's something that Chris and Jen have like really through all the projects they've seen. I've seen how like they build over the years, like you said, over a decade.
Well, I will give a final thank you and our gratitude to Rebecca, to Andrea, and to Annie today. It's such an honor to work alongside you folks. And I love all of the advocacy work you're doing, not just in the school board with teachers, but also with fellow principals and VPs. That's really important for them to hear. And we know that there's a big interest, and now the trick is how do we get everybody else on board? And encouragement from teachers to their administrators is really important, as is administrator support for teachers' work in this area as well. So I'm just going to flip really quickly to our last slide. And we'll just say that we've got a couple more events coming up for this year for those who are in the Toronto area and members of the TDSB. The Climate Camp registration has just opened this week. If you don't know about Climate Camp, you should. You can find the link if you look up Climate Camp TDSB. I think you'll find it on the website, and Sarah will likely drop in the URL to it as well into the chat. We'll make sure it goes out in the recording. This is a fantastic experience for both teachers and administrators of the Toronto District School Board, as well as OISE graduate students, to come and join us for 3 days at the Monocliffs Outdoor Ed Center in Caledon, Ontario in August. And it's a wonderful experience to find those other people who are champions alongside you and learn more about climate change education and climate justice education along the way. So we invite you to apply to register for that camp, and know that we've got our final year-end event coming up on June 4th of Cultivating Connections, also for TDSB teachers and administrators and staff, which will be happening at Gledhill Public School this year. And we're really excited to showcase their 20-year anniversary as an eco school and all of the really wonderful work they do there as well. So more information will be coming out in the Eco Schools newsletter. If you're not a member of or if you haven't joined the TDSB's Eco Schools newsletter, even if you're not from the TDSB, you don't have to be. It's a fantastic newsletter. They really do a wonderful job of keeping us up to date on all of the great work that's being done in this area. So thank you again to our speakers, and thank you so much for coming today, everybody. And we'll look forward to seeing you at our next event.